It's not just about winning races, right? It's not just about getting the right guy into the office, but what are you going to do to hold that guy accountable once he's in the office? How are you going to make sure he's the guy you elected? I think that's a really good question. How are you going to make sure you get what you bought?
I think you got to put the pressure on. I mean, it has to be consistent. I think you have to be very alert to what's happening, how they're voting. You know, if you don't like something, you need to do basic grassroots things. You need to make those phone calls. You need to let them know that we elected you to do one thing and you're doing something else. I'm just worried. I don't know. I can only think of maybe 5 or 6 Republicans in the House and Senate that I think actually have the backbone to take on something like entitlement reform. So I feel like we're going to need people that are really, really gutsy. That's going to have to be the majority. The majority is going to have to be gutsy Republicans. And I don't know if that's going to happen this time around. I don't know, Brendan, do you think we can do that?
Well, I think you make a good point. And first of all, let me say, you know, we believe, and I think Glenn believes this too, if you build a community first of liberty-loving people and you get that job done and you support them and you encourage them and that community is strong at every local level in the country, the politics will eventually take care of itself. We've got a lot of work to do in the politics side, but the community comes first. When you look at the House of Representatives, you know, everyone wants to say that they're a fiscal conservative. Everyone wants to claim the Tea Party mantle if you're a Republican. You know, the total number of Republicans that are pretty rock solid, depending on how you classify it, I'm sure there's more like, 20 to 25 that we would say are probably, 90%ers, maybe even higher, 95%. And then it kind of branches down, branches out from there. You may have some folks that are 80, 85%ers and then down from there. But if we can shift that gravity in the House and people like Alan West, like Joe Walsh, like, hopefully Mia Love gets elected in Utah. There's a lot of young candidates, freshmen, but also people that are going to be new coming in the 2012 class. If those guys get elected or if those guys stay in Congress, they're going to make a huge impact. We've got to really be that counterweight to the leadership, which is, compromising more, which is more open to, more regulations, growing the size of government. So it is up to the people to hold all these politicians accountable because eventually they all break your heart.
So, guys, let's ask the tough question. Let's say Republicans take the Senate. Your other half of this argument was, what does that really do? And I got to say, I'm something of a skeptic here. I think it's really important that we reduce the size of government. These are important things. However, I think when you have intransigence, when you have a divided Congress, it shows you that government should be slow and hard. Change should not come quickly. Imagine if the stimulus had come up when Republicans were in charge of the House. That would not have happened as quickly as it did. And I think it's a good thing when Boehner has to go back to the table 3 and 4 times over the debt ceiling or spending cuts. So there's something to be said for having this check. And it's messy, it's ugly, it frustrates the American people. Sometimes it wastes money. But even if we take the Senate back, I'm not sure that that's going to solve all our problems, and in fact can make things messier.
But you don't think that it would be helpful to maybe undo some of the damage that I think a lot of folks think has been done by the Democrats having really all 3, actually, having the Congress, having the Senate,
Absolutely.
Having the House,
As
the
a
Senate,
Republican, I'd love that. But there's something to be said for slow, hard government.
Etsy, as a corollary to what you just said, studies about, the growth of government. Government grows the fastest when one party controls all 3, House, Senate, and the White House, whether it's Republican or Democrat. So divided government actually slows the growth of government.
And if Romney wins and then Republicans win the Senate, of course, it'll seem like a mandate and a referendum, and they'll go gangbusters.
So do you think we have a prayer of actually shrinking the size of government if we have a divided government, if Republicans don't have? Do you think we do? I mean, I'm just asking.
I don't.
Because I would think we probably don't.
I think it's hard regardless, but I'm making the larger point that having a divided Congress actually
9 times out of 10.
Spending slower and harder, and it should be.